With the new Superman movies marketing in full swing, and the Batman Part 2 delayed to 2027, speculation that Robert Pattinson's Cape Crusader will be the official Batman of the DCU is higher than ever. But this speculation has seemed to also cause a lot of backlash in the community because Matt Reeves' The Batman universe works so well because of how grounded it is, while the new Superman movie seems to be thriving in this otherworldly, fantastical atmosphere. However, although I am not saying it should happen, I do think having the Batman universe be a part of the DCU would actually end up working. But for that, we need to break down why the Batman works as a movie, and then why the Superman movie seems to work as a movie, and then discuss why they share a lot more similarities than we might think. This is why Robert Pattinson would work as the DCU's Batman. Coffee time. Don't leave that in, but it's coffee time. Right off the bat, I do think it's important to note that the only official DCU project out right now is Creature Commandos. So spoiler warning for that show, if you haven't seen it, leave, because I'm about to drop a big one, so come back and watch later. Boom! Yeah, so Batman showed up, and quite frankly, it looks nothing like Robert Pattinson's Batman. But I do think it's important to note that initially this episode was going to feature a lot more Batman, but James Gunn specifically asked him to show less because he wasn't ready to commit to it yet. And also, like, by the time we get to the Batman Part 2, it's been delayed so many times, by the time we see Batman again, he just would have been Batman for a lot longer. So I still think, although we have this bit in Creature Commandos, they could still make it work. And by them, I mean James Gunn and Peter Safran. And also, like, let's be frank, it's not unlike DC to change their mind. Even though that was technically under different leadership, they're not immune to mistakes. But at the end of the day, I personally don't find it too concrete of evidence to say that, you know, Robert Pattinson can't be in the DCU. Could I just be coping because I've been thinking about this for a while? Yeah. But until there's more proof, I am still going to just talk about my little pipe dream. Because, like, that's just the fun with these things. To explain why the Batman works as a movie, I think the easiest comparison to make would be to Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. Both franchises are, I would argue, extremely different. However, they're both extremely grounded, giving audiences a fresh take on their favorite hero. With Christopher Nolan's films, they do a fantastic job at including the people of Gotham. Although it is like an insane story, whether that be with like fear toxins or a psychotic clown, it always comes back to the people of Gotham. So personally, that's why I think it works so well. It makes itself grounded because not only does it treat Batman as a human being, but also because, like, as a viewer, you can imagine yourself in that city. I mean, personally, I'm somebody who grew up in Chicago, and there's a lot of Chicago in those movies, but, like, just in general, how they display an urban city is pretty familiar to all of us. However, the Batman, on the other hand, focuses a lot less on the citizens of Gotham and a lot more on Bruce Wayne. I mean, like, honestly, that isn't even me analyzing too much if you just look at the screen time. In Batman Begins, Christian Bale has 70 minutes of screen time, but in The Batman, Robert Pattinson has 130 minutes. However, considering we see the world through Batman's eyes, it looks a lot different than the Nolan movies. And technically, yes, the movies look different because different people are behind the cameras, but this movie gives us a personal look at Bruce Wayne in a way we haven't ever seen before, and the look of the film reflects that. Christopher Nolan's films rely a lot on the set design and look of the movie to make it feel grounded. However, Matt Reeves' universe does the opposite and goes all out on the production design because Gotham is disgusting in this movie. Everything is wet, dirty, and dark, even somehow when it's like light outside. The movie goes out of its way to not make you feel like the city needs help, but it's beyond saving. But where the movie achieves its grounded feel is through the character of Batman. You know what Batman's thinking in this movie. Every punch he throws or every place he goes comes at a sacrifice, and you feel that through every moment in the movie. Sure, does he jump off a skyscraper, crash into a bus, and walk away like nothing happened? Yeah, no, he does do that. And that might be my least favorite part of the movie, but the rest of the movie does a pretty good job at making it pretty realistic how Batman handles these scenarios. Because at the end of the day, what Batman's doing is something you could see a person actually doing, which makes him trying to save this lost cause, otherworldly pit of hell they call Gotham so much more impactful. And that is why the Batman works. But now switching gears, going to Superman. Obviously, this movie hasn't come out, so I'm not going to really be able to talk about why the movie works because frankly, I don't know if it doesn't. It might be god-awful. However, we know generally the tone and atmosphere that the movie's trying to achieve thanks to the teaser trailer we've gotten so far, and so I'm mostly going to be talking about why that works. When this trailer came out, one word was on everybody's mind, and that was hope.
This is the type of messaging we want.
Hope embodied.
Hope. They give him hope. Superman is a symbol of hope.
With even James Gunn coming out and saying that he leaned away from his typical use of like a soundtrack in a film like he did in Guardians of the Galaxy or the Suicide Squad, and relied much more heavily on the score, which makes me think it's not just the trailer dialing into this sense of hope, but it's going to be the entire movie. And it translates into the look of the film. The movie is so bright and colorful. Some would argue too bright and colorful. But either way, it's leaning as far away as possible from the grounded story, something the previous iteration of the character focused way too much on, and instead is leaning 1 1000% into the fantastical. This movie has huge alien kaiju monsters. It has the bumbling Clark Kent. It's got the trunks. Listen, Zack Snyder's take on the character was interesting. I do actually quite like the Man of Steel. However, Snyder was mostly chosen to head the DCEU movies because at the time, dark, brooding movies were in. So when Man of Steel came out, instead of feeling like you're in this new world, it kind of just felt like things we had seen before. This is what gets me excited for this iteration of the character, because although it takes a lot of inspiration from the Richard Donner movies, it appears to be truly its own thing. And that is why this new Superman movie looks like it's going to work. It is not afraid to lean into the fantasy elements of the character, and it's taking big swings to give us this bright, colorful, otherworldly take on the Man of Steel. So, now that I've discussed in my opinion why the Batman works and why the Superman movie looks like it's going to work, there's one word that both thrive in, and that's otherworldly. The Batman is an extremely grounded film, but quite literally so much that it becomes fantastical. And with Superman, it seems exactly the same, just on the other end of the spectrum. Now, if you're super opposed to this idea, one thought that might be going on in your head is that they just look too different. Both of these films are two completely different worlds, and if you try to place one character in the other, it would just clash way too much. But that's when I think it's important to mention the DCU's next project to come out, Supergirl. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is not only directed by Craig Gillespie, famous for movies like I, Tonya and Lars and the Real Girl, but behind the camera as the director of photography is Rob Hardy, who is famous for movies like Ex Machina and Annihilation. This movie is going to be tonally so estranged from Superman because that's what James Gunn and Peter Safran are going for. In an interview, James Gunn talked about what makes the DC universe so cool when compared to the Marvel universe, and it's that it's not our Earth, and that gives you a lot more wiggle room in the world building.
One of the things I love about DC and excites me about DC is that in a way it's another alternate history. You know, it is Gotham City and Metropolis and Star City and Bloodhaven and you know, all these different places in this other reality. And it makes it a little bit like Westeros in some ways. I love that about it. I love that we get to create true world building in DC.
So although yes, the Batman and Superman have completely different tones, that's the kind of thing that makes the universe of DC so interesting. Would it be tricky to accomplish? 100%. However, I do think that if they went in this direction, and if they eventually tried pulling it off, it would be one of the most fascinating projects of all time. Because yes, they are so different, but they both dance around in this fantastical world. And considering they're both so fantastical, it could create some extremely interesting dynamics between the two. Where like if it was Nolan's Batman and Snyder's Superman, it wouldn't be nearly as exciting. With both of these franchises being so otherworldly, although it would be jarring at first, the DC universe is so good at being able to say that like these are different places in this world, I think people will be surprised how well audiences are willing to accept it. So are the odds of this happening slim? Yes, and the odds are even more slim that if it happened, it would actually work. However, I have an extreme amount of faith in the team over at DC right now, and if anybody can make it work, I think it would be those guys. However, I could be totally off, and DC could just announce Batman the Brave and the Bold is in production like tomorrow, and that they have a brand new Batman. But hey, I was around in the nerd community when everybody was speculating how Andrew Garfield was going to be included in Captain America Civil War, and that was fun, and so is this. Alright, that's all for this week. If you made it to the end and you liked the video, please go ahead and click that like button so like the algorithm knows that what I'm doing is working. Also, if you want to stay tuned for next week's video, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Post these at noon every week on Saturday. And you know what? Maybe if you're even feeling like it, click that notification button so you get specifically notified. Alright, but that's all for the Desperate Call to Actions. Thank you for watching. See you next week.